something dark is happening in Tulsa. And this time, it's not just about power or money. Dwight the General Manfredi, the man who once ruled the streets with old-school charm and an iron fist, is losing control. The empire he built from nothing is starting to fall apart, and every decision he makes now pulls him deeper into the darkness. Season 3 of Tulsa King isn't just another chapter, it's the breaking point. The loyalty, the family, the code he lived by, all of it is being tested like never before. Dwight Manfredi came to Tulsa with nothing but his reputation and the weight of 25 lost years behind bars. He wasn't supposed to survive. The world had changed. The mob wasn't what it used to be. The streets had new rules, and the people had stopped believing in loyalty. But Dwight, with that old-school fire in his eyes, built something out of chaos. In the first 2 seasons, we saw him take over a city that didn't even know it needed a king. He made allies from enemies, turned small hustlers into loyal soldiers, and created an empire rooted in his own sense of justice. He wasn't a saint, but he wasn't the monster everyone thought either. He had a code, and for a time, it worked. But as Season 3 begins, that code is cracking. The same people who once looked up to him are starting to question his every move. The cracks in his empire aren't sudden. They've been growing quietly, hidden behind every deal, every lie, every forced smile. Dwight tried to build something honest out of something dirty. But the truth is, you can't build peace on the bones of old sins. The ghosts of his past, the people he hurt, and the choices he made are now standing at his doorstep. The streets of Tulsa don't feel like his kingdom anymore. They feel colder, more dangerous, like the city itself is turning against him. The law is watching, his enemies are regrouping, and even his own crew seems to be slipping out of his control. Season 3 wastes no time showing that this isn't the story of a man climbing higher. It's the story of a man fighting not to fall. Dwight still walks tall, but you can see it in his eyes, that weight, that fear, that quiet realization that maybe this time, he's not getting out clean. Every empire falls, but Dwight's fall feels personal. It's not just about territory or power. It's about losing himself. In Tulsa, he tried to rewrite his story, to be more than the mobster they made him. But the darkness doesn't forget. It waits and it's patient. And now it's catching up. Season 3 opens like a storm, quiet at first, then sudden, brutal, and impossible to stop. Something has shifted inside Dwight, and it's not just the pressure of running an empire. It's the loneliness of being the last man standing in a world that no longer plays by his rules. The old mob codes he swears by, loyalty, respect, honor, they don't mean much anymore. Everyone around him wants something. Every handshake hides a blade. Every smile is a lie waiting to be revealed. And for the first time, Dwight seems to know it. You can see it in the way he looks at people now, slower, suspicious, almost tired. The king of Tulsa is starting to doubt his own kingdom. What makes this season darker isn't just the violence, it's the silence before it. The way Dwight walks into a room and you can feel that something's off. His crew, once solid and loyal, is starting to drift. Some of them whisper that he's too old school, too soft for this new kind of crime. Others fear him more than they respect him. Even the people he trusted most begin to pull away, finding safety in betrayal. One by one, the pieces that made his empire strong begin to crumble, not from outside attacks, but from the inside out. And then there's the law. The feds haven't forgotten Dwight's past, and they've been watching every move he makes. But this time, it's not just about catching him, it's about breaking him. They go after his people, his money, and his reputation. Suddenly, every lie becomes a risk. Every deal becomes a trap. Dwight's calm face starts to crack, showing glimpses of the man beneath the armor, a man who's tired of fighting, but too proud to quit. The streets that once bowed to him now whisper his name like a warning. Tulsa itself feels different in Season 3. The colors are darker, the corners sharper, the world colder. It's as if the city has turned into a mirror for Dwight's own decay. The nightclubs, the backrooms, the warehouses, they all carry the same heavy air of distrust. His empire, once filled with the sound of ambition and power, now echoes with silence. The people who once toasted his name now hide when he walks in. You can feel it. Something is dying, and not just his business. There's one moment that captures it perfectly. Dwight standing alone in the bar he built, glass in hand, staring at the empty seats that once overflowed with laughter and loyalty. No words, just that look, the realization that the king no longer has a kingdom. You can almost hear the ghosts of his choices whispering back at him. Every betrayal, every revenge. Every time he said it's just business, now it's all coming back. And he knows there's no way to outrun it. The real darkness of Tulsa King Season 3 isn't in the gunfights or the blood. It's in the silence that follows them. It's in the way Dwight starts to question if any of it, the money, the power, the name, was ever worth it. His empire isn't being stolen from him. It's collapsing under the weight of his own past. And maybe that's the cruelest twist of all. He wanted to build a family. Instead, he built a prison made of loyalty and fear. The same walls that kept others out are now trapping him inside. The same people who swore to protect him are now watching him bleed. The once confident general is becoming a ghost of his former self, still dangerous, still powerful, but haunted by everything he's lost along the way. And just when you think it can't get worse, the final blow comes from where it hurts most, someone close, someone he trusted completely. It's not just betrayal, it's heartbreak. That's when the dark turn truly hits. You realize that Dwight's biggest enemy was never the law or the rival gangs. It was the loneliness that power brings, the silence that loyalty hides, and the truth that kings never retire. They just fall harder. This is where the story of Tulsa King stops being about crime and becomes something much deeper, a story about guilt, about the price of loyalty, and about what happens when a man who once had everything realizes he's already lost it all. Dwight's empire isn't burning with fire. It's fading into shadows. And the scariest part, he knows it. By the time we reach the middle of Season 3, something inside Dwight has changed completely. He's not the same man who arrived in Tulsa with a smirk and a plan. The calm strategist, the charming mobster who could talk his way out of anything, that man is fading. What's left now is a fighter running out of things worth fighting for. The once steady rhythm of his empire has turned into chaos. Every phone call is bad news. Every meeting feels like a setup. And every night brings another reminder that he's losing control of the world he built from the ground up. But Dwight doesn't surrender easily. That's what makes him dangerous. Not his strength, but his refusal to bow down. Even as everything crumbles around him, he still believes he can outsmart the storm. He starts moving differently, talking less, trusting no one. He doesn't react to betrayal with anger anymore, just silence. The kind of silence that scares people more than any threat ever could. This is where the show becomes less about power and more about survival. The once cocky king now looks like a soldier in a war he can't win, too stubborn to stop, too proud to run. And yet, deep down, you sense something else, guilt. Real, heavy guilt. Dwight's always lived by his code, loyalty above all. But now he's beginning to see that the same code might have poisoned everything he touched. His loyalty blinded him to the truth that not everyone who stands beside you stands for you. He starts looking at his past decisions with new eyes. The people he pushed away, the trust he gave too easily, the choices he made for the family. Suddenly, every face, every loss, every betrayal starts to weigh on him. It's not just business anymore, it's personal. The cinematography mirrors this shift perfectly. The lights are dimmer, the camera lingers longer on Dwight's face, as if trying to read what's going on behind those eyes. The city itself feels smaller now, almost claustrophobic. The bars and backrooms that once buzzed with power now feel haunted. Dwight begins to haunt them too, always there, but never really present. The streets whisper about him, the cops circle tighter, and the young bloods in town smell weakness. In the world he once ruled, Dwight has become the hunted. Then comes the turning point, the moment that pushes him over the edge. A betrayal so personal that even Dwight, who's seen every kind of treachery, stands still for a moment too long. It's someone he trusted, someone he saw as family, who sells him out. And not for money, not for power, but for survival. That's what cuts the deepest. In that moment, you see it, not anger, not even sadness, but realization. Dwight finally understands that the world he built doesn't run on loyalty anymore. It runs on fear, desperation, and lies. Instead of collapsing, though, Dwight transforms. He becomes colder, sharper, almost surgical in the way he moves. Every word he says carries weight, every action feels deliberate. He's done trying to be the better man. Season 3 shows us a Dwight who's stepping back into the darkness, but this time, on his own terms. He's not fighting for his empire anymore. He's fighting to make peace with his demons. The same streets that made him are now his battlefield once again. The beauty of this arc is in its tragedy. Dwight isn't losing because he's weak. He's losing because he's human. He still believes in things that the modern world has abandoned: honor, loyalty, promises that mean something. But those beliefs have no place in Tulsa anymore. They make him a relic, a ghost of a different time. Yet he clings to them because that's all he has left. The audience starts to see him not as a villain, not even as a hero, but as a man trapped between who he was and who he's becoming. There's a haunting kind of poetry to it all. The king who built an empire on loyalty now walks alone through empty streets, his crown made of regret. He's fighting shadows, his past, his guilt, his choices, and he knows he can't win. But he fights anyway, because that's all he's ever known how to do. And that's what makes this season so powerful. It's not about victory. It's about endurance. It's about watching a man refuse to fade quietly, even as the world forgets his name. As the tension builds, Dwight's enemies multiply, but so does his focus. He starts cutting ties, cleaning house, preparing for what feels like a final stand. He's not trying to rebuild anymore. He's trying to make peace with the chaos, to walk into the darkness on his own terms. And the scariest part, he's not afraid anymore. That's when you realize the truth. You can't destroy a man who's already lost everything. By the time we reach the final stretch of Season 3, the storm Dwight tried to outrun finally catches him. There's no more pretending, no more second chances. The empire he built brick by brick is in ruins, and the man who once ruled the streets with unshakable confidence now walks through the ashes of his own making. But this isn't a fall in the ordinary sense. It's a slow, deliberate unraveling, the kind that feels more like fate than failure. Every wrong choice, every broken promise, every ghost from his past, they've all come back to collect. The season doesn't paint Dwight's downfall with explosions or gunfights. It paints it in silence, in the quiet moments where he's left alone with nothing but his thoughts. The bar is empty, his office dark. The phone doesn't ring anymore. Tulsa, once alive with his presence, feels hollow without him. It's like the city itself has moved on, leaving him behind. For the first time, Dwight seems small, not weak, but human. The man who once controlled everything can't even control the chaos inside his own mind. You can almost feel it through the screen, that mix of pride, regret, and a strange kind of peace that comes when there's nothing left to lose. But Dwight doesn't collapse in defeat. He accepts it like a man who's seen death before and isn't afraid to meet it again. What's remarkable is how Season 3 doesn't turn him into a victim or a villain. It turns him into a mirror, a reflection of everything power does to a man who believes he can outsmart his own destiny. We see him try to make things right, not with words, but with actions. He visits the people he wronged, tries to protect those who still matter, and faces the enemies he can't escape. It's not redemption, it's reckoning. Dwight isn't asking for forgiveness. He's paying his debts in full. There's a haunting beauty in how the show captures his final moments of control. One last meeting, one last favor, one last piece of business. Every move he makes feels like the closing of a chapter. You can sense that Dwight knows exactly how this ends. The old code he lived by has been shredded by the modern world, but he still follows it anyway. because that's who he is. Even in defeat, Dwight Manfredi stays loyal to his word, to his people, and to the man he used to be. And that's what makes his fall so powerful. He doesn't lose because someone beat him. He loses because the world changed and he refused to die. As the final act unfolds, the atmosphere becomes heavier. The music slows, the colors fade, and every scene feels like a goodbye. The people who once feared him now look at him with pity. The ones who betrayed him can't even meet his eyes. It's as if everyone knows that the king of Tulsa is taking his last walk through the city he once owned. Yet, there's a strange kind of respect in the air, the way you look at a legend whose time has ended, but whose shadow will always linger. In a world where loyalty means nothing and survival means everything, Dwight's story becomes a tragedy wrapped in dignity. He doesn't beg, he doesn't run, he simply stands his ground, even as the walls close in. He understands now that power was never his to keep. It was borrowed, like everything else in his life. And when the time comes to give it back, he does it without fear. That's what separates him from the rest. He may have lost everything, but he never lost himself. The final moments of the season are almost poetic. Dwight sits alone, the city lights flickering in the distance. You can tell he's thinking about all of it. The family he built, the lives he ruined, the code that both made and destroyed him. There's no dialogue, no grand finale, just a quiet man staring into the night, knowing his reign is over. Yet somehow, it doesn't feel like an end. It feels like peace. Because deep down, Dwight knows something no one else does. Even kings must fall. But legends never truly die. The screen fades to black. But his presence lingers, that sense of unfinished business, that haunting silence that follows greatness. It's not just the fall of a mob boss. It's the story of a man who gave everything to a world that gave him nothing back. And in that silence, you can almost hear him whisper one last truth: loyalty always costs more than it pays. Season 3 doesn't just end Dwight's story, it immortalizes it. It reminds us that no empire lasts forever, and no man can escape the weight of his own past. But it also shows us something deeper, that even in ruin, there can be grace. Even in darkness, there can be dignity. And maybe, just maybe, that's what makes Dwight Manfredi not just a king, but a legend carved in shadow.